So glad you can join us for this program. Now, recent polls show that Joe Biden has lost touch with his supporters, with surveys suggesting the president's intense focus on funding Ukraine could be partly to blame. Let's learn more right now, crossing live straight to New York. And Caleb Moppin joining us on this program here. Good to see you, Caleb. So more bad news polls for the Joe Biden administration. Take us through the story, if you would.
Sure. Well, November 8th, we've got midterm elections coming up in the United States. And many are asking the question, if the Republicans take back control of the House and the Senate, will the Kiev government continue to get blank checks from the United States to continue to prolong this war and fund their activities? Well, recent comments from the leader of the Republicans in the House, Kevin McCarthy, they say that that will not be the case, that they will slow down to some degree funding from the United States for the military conflict. So that raises questions. Now, Joe Biden apparently says he's staying up late at night worrying about this. This is Biden reacting.
They said that if they win, they're not likely to continue to fund Ukraine, the Ukrainian war against the Russians. These guys don't get it. It's a lot bigger than Ukraine. It's Eastern Europe. It's NATO. It's real, serious, consequential outcomes. They have no sense of American foreign policy.
Now, that dismissal of Republicans of just not having sense of American foreign policy isn't just a snub at the Republican Party. It's a snub at the bulk of the American people. Polls show that when Americans are asked their top priorities regarding the situation in the country, what they're voting around, they don't list foreign policy, and Ukraine is among them. The top concern that Americans are taking to the polls on November 8th, according to a recent poll that was conducted, their top concern is inflation and the rising cost of food, the rising cost of energy. In addition to being concerned about inflation, another major issue that American voters are concerned about is the border. And they're not talking about the borders of Ukraine. They're talking about the borders of the United States and the security issue there.
My constituents are saying, why are we more worried about Ukraine's borders than we are about America's borders? My constituents are not sitting there going, gosh, we have to save Ukraine's borders.
Now, this isn't the only poll that's been taken to show this. Biden doesn't seem to take the hint, but polling has consistently shown that the American people are not really as deeply invested in this conflict with Ukraine as the White House is. They just don't share the White House's enthusiasm about it, and there's a feeling that the domestic situation is being neglected. These are the results that came out in a recent poll taken by the very prestigious polling agency known as Quincy.
Current U.S. arms policy and practice too often fuel war rather than deterring it. Roughly two-thirds of current conflicts, 34 out of 46, involve one or more parties armed by the United States. Of the U.S.-supplied nations at war, 16 received $50 million or more worth of U.S. arms between 2017 and 2021. This contradicts the long-standing argument that U.S. arms routinely promote stability and deter conflict.
Now, that poll from the Quincy Institute shows what poll after poll after poll has shown, that essentially the White House's Ukraine policies are lose-lose. On the one hand, pouring more money into Kiev is only going to prolong this conflict that has already had disastrous results for the global energy markets, for the global economy, affecting Americans. And on top of that, the more money that the White House continues to pour into Kiev, the more average Americans feel like their needs are being neglected. So the White House is just ultimately losing out with their Ukraine policies.
All right, and live in the Big Apple, RT's Caleb Moppin, thank you.